Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Box Report, episode 233. I'm your host, Michael. Joining me this week, Gail from Communities Digital News, Gus from Corruption and Boxing. I'm Daniel from The Inscriber. What's going on, lady and gents?
Happy boxing holidays, everybody.
Ho, ho, ho.
Indeed. Boxing right through the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays. For those who are new, Pound for Pound Box Report, once again, as we always say to begin the show, Pound for Pound Box Report. Podcast, live YouTube show, blog discussing all things boxing. No matter what, when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When boxing is bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line, if it concerns the sweet science, we will talk about it. If you want to find out all information regarding Pound for Pound Box Report, the blog page is the place to go to. p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com. That is the link. You check the right of the blog page, you will find links to where to find us all over social media, where to find us on all available podcasts, all available platforms that carry podcasts, minus Spotify. We're not on there yet. And as I said before, as I've said earlier, most things are not free, including the production of this podcast. So got a donate link there, a donate button there. Let donation be the best nation. I don't care how much you give, $1, $5, $10, $20. Like I said last week, I want to thank Jacob from Jab Hook. He donated some money last week. And yeah, hit that donate button. If you're listening to us live on YouTube right now, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let's get the show started. I'm going to recap what went down last week. Good chunk of boxing that went down last week. Want to start in NYC, in Barclays, with the DAZN card. Headline, of course, by the Canelo Alvarez moving up to 168 pounds, fighting Rocky Fielding. I'm not going to call it a title fight because that would be an insult to call it a title fight. Canelo stopping Fielding in round 3. Go to ladies first, as always on the show. Go to Gail. Listen, going in, we thought this fight was basically a joke, and it turned out to be that way. It was a no contest. Canelo did what he wanted to against a Fielding who I felt didn't even come to fight. Fielding got knocked down, I want to say 3 times. The fact that he was smiling every time after he got knocked down, that just told me how his lack of seriousness, his lack of effort. Canelo did what he had to do. Your recap.
Hey, anybody mad about this fight they got taken for a ride? Are the same people off about Mayweather and Pacquiao? Come on, folks. Seriously. We all knew what this fight was about. This fight was not about a minor title. This fight was not about champion. This fight was about promoting DAZN's streaming platform in the United States. That's it. It was one big commercial. That's it. Having said that, nobody expected Canelo to fight at all again in 2018. So, looking at it in the most kind, optimistic way possible, hey, those who are fans of Canelo Alvarez got to see him take out a human punching bag for a couple of rounds, got to see their guy in the ring. Great, fine, nothing wrong with it. Neither party was conscripted to do this. They both seemingly agreed to it of their free will, and everyone watching seemingly agreed to it of their free will. We got exactly what we expected to get. It was a little demoralizing seeing Fielding put up seemingly so little of a fight. I mean, he got caught with the first of a multitude of left hooks to the liver seconds into the fight, took a knee, and, you know, honestly, it was all over right there. The fact that he took a knee twice more before he finally got knocked down and stopped at the mercy of the referee, who did the right thing, was sort of beside the point. So nobody should have been surprised at all with what they got. But we did get to see a 168-pound, officially, Canelo Alvarez. So for observers, that's a little more information for you to process about this guy. Not much beyond that. And we need your mic on, our host.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was on mute. I'm a little bit wary here. I'm going to you, Gus. You talk heavy about the business side. Um, Highly critical of the sport when it's warranted. Highly critical of events, fighters, promoters, managers, etc. Um, I know you didn't get anything from this fight. No one really did. However, I'm interested in your commentary to piggyback on what Gail said in terms of being this event, quote unquote, basically being a promotion of DAZN, uh, given the fact that this is the introductory fight for Canelo and his 11 fight, $300+ million deal, him and Golden Boy. Your reaction to all of that, to reaction to what you saw.
The Rocky Fielding was very well compensated to offer minimal resistance in the ring. Now, you can take that as a euphemism because it was clearly intended. That was 100% a fixed fight. I've seen enough boxing over the decades, and I know enough of Rocky Fielding. You can go back to even the weigh-in mic. Now, Rocky, every boxer around the world has seen Canelo Alvarez fight. They know he's a highly proficient combination puncher. They know he is a fantastic body puncher. A lot of his knockouts have accrued due to, his fast hands at that sort of range. So Fielding and his trainer Jamie Moore must have studied Alvarez. But looking at Rocky Fielding on the scales, Mike, it looked like he undertook photostatus, which is reducing all of your muscle. He had no muscle definition at all. He almost looked emaciated on the scales. He looked extremely soft around the torso area, the stomach area, which is shocking to me. If you're gonna fight a prodigious sort of body puncher, it's just logic, basic common sense that you're going to try and reinforce your stomach, build up your muscles there, because it's going to be severely tested. And given the height discrepancy, Canelo's going to have a massive body area to target. So, but he looked softer in that area than what I've ever seen him in the past. And that is against, Jamie, John Ryder, and, Callum and Rabrassi and, Tyron Zoiga as well. So that looked, highly suspicious to me as well. Now in the ring, he chose to back up to the ropes prior to Alvarez even initiating his attacks. He dispensed with his jab. He fought with a low lead left hand, which he does to a certain extent. He didn't tuck in his torso with his right elbows either. So his body was just unbelievably exposed. He chose to trade with Alvarez inside the pocket. And when he was clearly being, and he was visibly hurt by a lot of the body shots, you could see the expression on his face. What did he do? He chose to stay right there. He didn't even try and move. He did the sort of anti of everything textbook. And those knockdowns as well, as you mentioned, Mike, smiling at his corner. Now, I've fought and I've hit plenty of people with body shots, and when they go down, they don't smile, Mike. They cry or they spit or they vomit. They certainly don't smile like that. So, no, that was a sad indictment upon the sport. Rocky Fielding is not a poor man. He could have still, defended the regular title, and had some sort of credibility, but that was pathetic. And you could even tell with Jamie Moore's instructions, there was no instructions about trying to move, trying to establish, trying to fight behind the jab, not give away your height. There was none of that whatsoever. And Jamie Moore is a competent judge. I've liked a lot of the work he's done. So
let me interrupt you here. Excuse me for doing so. Given your analysis, and I know this is going to be a really harsh indictment, maybe even unfair. Could it be suggested that Fielding basically sold out for the dollar here?
Yeah, as I said in the beginning, Mike, he was very well paid, and pretty much I think he was basically advised not to provide any sort of resistance, whatever. I've seen him fight, Mike, and he doesn't fight like that. That was a 100% capitulation. That was, it's pathetic is even an understatement for that sort of performance. The punches even he was throwing, Mike. Now he's 168 stroke 175-pound fighter. Given that he had no muscle definition, so a lot of the weight is obviously water and bones, and there wasn't obviously a lot of fat on him. So he's a naturally a much bigger guy. You can see that. But the way he was throwing his punches, there was absolutely nothing on his punches, and Rocky's known to have a little bit of power. Is nothing concussive or bruising, but it's stinging sort of power. But and Alvarez, Mike, as I've said for many times, Alvarez is not a concussive puncher. I've watched him fight against the Ryan Rhodes in Guadalajara, Mexico, where Rhodes was just taking all of his shots, but the referee chose to gift Alvarez a decision in front of his Guadalajaran sort of supporters in the last round. And other fighters have taken his punches, so I don't believe Alvarez is a concussive puncher like that. So no, Mike, I trust my instincts, and then that was definitely a fixed fight. If you're saying that Rocky Fielding accepted the money, then that's technically the same thing. He took the money and he took a dive. Or he took numerous dives. It's not even really. It's not. You can't even constitute that as a showcase fight for Alvarez, because a showcase fight is not sort of capitulating, bowing down, sacrificing his belt, almost putting it on a platter for him. He would have been better off just relinquishing the belt and Alvarez fighting somebody else. For the zone to pay this man, these sort of NBA, NFL type of contracts, Mike, where it's not incentivized like that. I don't know. I don't know whether DAZN have the ability to say to Alvarez, look, yes, we're paying you a tremendous amount of money, but we expect, some sort of a baseline level of competition, or, some sort of unifications in either divisions. I don't know whether that dialogue does exist, but Leonard Blavatnik is not a stupid man, so I presume there will be some sort of constraints. If they're going to pay him a lot of money, then the way I worked it, they need at least sort of 4 million paid subscribers, Mike. They need to sort of recoup. It's going to be a disastrous financial model, if Alvarez is just fighting no competition and they can't sort of attract these paid subscribers. So it was just a lot of nonsense, Mike. A disgusting event for me.
Your reaction to what you saw, Daniel, and kind of the back and forth between Gus and I in terms of this bout.
We all knew what this was when it was just announced. We all knew what it was. You said it outside when you said the name Rocky Fielding. We knew this was going to be what we're going to get. But Gail is right. The point of that wasn't to give Canelo a tough opponent, particularly after fighting Golovkin again. This was to highlight the zone and to try to bring up the subscriber rate. As far as the fight itself, I'm sorry, Rocky Fielding never uses his height, never uses his reach. He likes to fight inside and negate those advantages. So that's pretty much a field day for a body puncher like Canelo. So that's no surprise at all. No surprise at all how that fight ended. as far like the back and forth, I'm not gonna go as far as to say it was a fixed fight, but it's Rocky Fielding. You can't expect this result when it's Rocky Fielding. The main thing that probably you're gonna have to judge this on is, did this get any new subscribers that stay on past February? Because right now, like the zone did the whole 30-day guarantee, 3 months, so that's until the end of January, technically. No, to mid-January. So you have to get those subscribers to sign up for free to stay with the zone for Valentine's Day, essentially. And this was my worry. This was my worry when they made the contract with Canelo, because right now the offer for the zone is like that, a free monthly offer, but they're paying that man LeBron money right now for a fight.
Yeah.
And when you pay somebody LeBron money for one night's work, you kind of need to make up the difference. Now, granted, yes, the zone has a whole lot more to offer than just boxing. Like they do have streaming packages for other events. They do have Bundesliga, which is like the German football league that's pretty much on par in many ways with the English Premier League. But that's not enough in the North American market. At some point, like I said, if we're going to judge the future of the zone, if they don't have a subscriber count, I don't know the figure, but if they don't have a substantial subscriber count or subscriber increase by mid-2019, suddenly that commercial that Michael Buffer did with Canelo, where they're saying pay-per-view is screwed, is going to be one of those things that Twitter handle Otakes Exposed plays on loop, because then you're going to start seeing the zone pay-per-view coming pretty soon.
I'm going to open up the discussion here. Look, this fight was, as we all stated here, basically a showcase fight. Canelo, I guess, got a quote-unquote belt. The question is, in the aftermath, where does he go? He's probably he's going back down to 160 pounds following this fight. The question is, I'm just going to open up for anybody who wants to answer, where does he go? Who does he fight? Daniel Jacobs, he was in the ring. He was at ringside after the fight, clamoring for a bout with Canelo. You got Demetrius Andrade. You got Billy Joe Saunders out there. You got Charlo, his mandatory, Jermall, and still you got Triple G out there for a possible third fight. So moving on into 2019, De La Hoya and Golden Boy have announced he's going to 2 fights May 4th. Who does he fight?
He's going to fight Big Bird from Sesame Street at 160 pounds.
Golden Boy and 360 Promotions jointly have the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas reserved and have made their official notification to the Nevada State Athletic Commission. Anybody making a wild guess as to what they think is supposed to happen there? Come on, folks. We know where the big money fight is. We know what everyone wants. Their fight would be Canelo and Danny Jacobs. I do. But I think we all know we're going to see the third in the trilogy come May 4th.
Your thoughts, Daniel?
I thought that was Photoshopped. I thought that was that was a Photoshop picture going around.
No, and both of them have, if you go on the Nevada State Athletic Commission's website, you know, they are a public agency under the state of Nevada, as all athletic commissions are, and they're subjected to the same public records, regulations, and notifications of their required meeting schedule as any other government entity. You could look and see exactly what sort of business is going on there. You know, so people don't just athletic commission websites. They're chock full of interesting information.
If it indeed is a third fight between Canelo, Triple G, Gus, would you want to see a third fight between the two, or would you want to see Canelo go another direction? Me personally, I want to see him finally tangle with Charlo at 160 pounds. I mean, he's been there. He's interim champion. He's been number one contender for the longest. Give Maul his shot.
Maul has been waiting. What is it? A year and a half? Coming 2 years? I'm not sure. If the WBC haven't ordered that fight, given the time that has elapsed, then I'm not sure whether they're. We know Alvarez, Mike, the amount of power he wields, especially with a sort of a Mexican organization. So whether they're going to enforce that mandatory on him, but Alvarez wouldn't even fight him. Like he would rather vacate the WBC belt than fight Maul. Belts don't really mean anything to him. They don't give him some sort of intrinsic valuation. He generates that from his massive sort of fan base and his ability to to pack out any arenas and the pay-per-views and whatever in the United States. But now he's got his contract, so it wouldn't even matter to him. So belts are not the issue, Mike. He wanted a massive lucrative deal. The WBA regular. You think that means as much as him as some fucking pile of bones on his dinner table. It means jack shit to him. But the way the promoters are talking now on the DAZN platform is that if opponents do not come to that specific application, then they are not going to be considered as future opponents. It's a very aggressive strategy that they're pursuing now. They're not only looking for sort of market share of fighters on the application. It's a dominant sort of strategy. What Al Heyman was trying initially, trying to get the market share of fighters by offering them, lucratively high purses above their sort of market valuation, to command their loyalty and get them on the PBC platform. And it worked. He got a massive number of fighters, but ultimately he was unable to fulfill dates and manage that roster sufficiently. So it was a bit of a failure. But it's been resurrected with other networks offering him money now, so he's able to maybe distribute those fighters. But whether they're going to allow or give dispensations to some of these fighters to come over and fight on there, I can't see that, Mike. I can only see those fighters fighting on whatever network their promoter has. It's only fighters who are willing to sign, whether it's even a one-fight deal or whatever. I don't know how flexible they are, but they want to keep it in-house. So the logical options will be, Danny Jacobs. I think, I'm not sure whether his HBO deal was over now, so he'll probably be fighting on DAZN. So he has one belt. Seems a logical fight down the line. Demetrius Andrade seems another. 2 fights at middleweight, so he's got potentially, 2 of the other belts there. So he could try and go undisputed if he wants. That's perfectly fine. Should he decide to fight at 168, then the fight with Callum Smith can be made easily, given that Eddie Hearn is the lead promoter of Callum.
And they was talking about a potential match with Callum Smith an awful lot after about too much for my taste. But yeah, they mentioned him quite a bit.
I still feel Callum Smith is a little bit untested, Mike. Jurgen Bremer would have been a good test against a wily sort of veteran like that. He fought at George Groves, but I spoke about that fight, Mike. George Groves almost had a defeatist attitude coming into the ring, somebody who's been contemplating retirement before he even gets in the ring. Even halfway during his training camp, he was skeptical about even fighting. So the negativity was there. You know, he'd sustained a lot of, a lot in the ring, coming back from surgery as well. So, that was a George Groves at the tail end of his career. So a changing of the guard was right there. So, but Callum is obviously a much better fighter than Rocky Fielding. So it would be a good test. And he's the true WBA champion. So whether the WBA, in line with their strategy, what they prognosticated 4 years ago in terms of having consolidations with the WBA, 4 years later we're still talking about it, Mike. So what did they do straight after the first Danny Jacobs and Gennady Golovkin fight, which they ordered as a consolidation? They recycled the belt and they made Murata and Hassan Mendam fight for the WBA regular straight after, which Daniel Jacobs lost it. So, man, these motherfuckers, man, line them all of them up and shoot all of them, man. There's no credibility in any of them, Mike. So, Big Bird is my money's on Big Bird. I don't care.
Well, if it's Golovkin, the next fight, I'll take it. Like, I understand some people still trying to say that Golovkin won both fights. I get the argument. And Golovkin's gonna want that payday at this point. Jermall, that's the iffy area with Jermall. Because in many ways the Cold War has reinstated itself. But instead of being Showtime and HBO, it's PBC, ESPN Plus, and DAZN. Now, the only party that has stated that they're not going to be the ones to block fights is ESPN. But ESPN is a network that can afford to do so. DAZN can't really afford it. And we know, and Al Heyman can only recycle so many fights for so long. The issue probably is going to be this, and the Gus touched it a little bit with the PBC formula, is what Al Heyman tried to do mainly is first buy airtime and then convince the networks to repay him to make a difference and make a profit. The mistake was he thinking that because he put airtime that they were just going to accept any fight they can take into it. Obviously, that's not the case. Only one network is choosing to stay with PBC, Fox. Now the situation now is going to be like with DAZN. Okay, you have these fighters, you have to put in fight of them, but now they actually have promoters. They can actually market it properly. The issue is going to be that you have to, like in Canelo's case, okay, you fight Golovkin, now you have to fight a Jacobs or you have to fight Jermall. Jermall's going to be the difficult one because obviously, like I said, Jermall's with Heyman. You're going to need either the zone to pay a pretty hefty price to get Jermall, and that's the main worry to me. That's when you're going to start to see that the zone pay-per-view happen. Because right now they're trying to sell you the formula of you no longer have to pay pay-per-view again to watch Canelo Alvarez. But we know at a certain point that's a lie. So if it's Golovkin on May 4th, I'll take it. If it's Danny Jacobs on May 4th, I'm no problem with that. If it's Andrade on May 4th, I'll just be surprised that he doesn't do anything to screw himself up at this stage. So after that, then you have to take care of your mandatories then. Take care of Jermall or take care of Murata. You got to pick or Brandt. You had to pick one.
Andrade, who's going to be fighting next month. I can't remember the specific date, but yeah, Triple G third fight. That's okay with me. That's fine. I would be surprised at an Andrade fight. Jacobs, I'm cool with, but for me, I'll reiterate again. The fight I want to see for Canelo is a fight with Maul at 160. Um, he's bit. He deserves a shot. He's earned the shot. He's sat patiently waiting. I think he deserves an opportunity. Will it happen? Probably not, but that's the fight I want to see Canelo fight next at 160 pounds.
Michael, in terms of the Golovkin fight now, is Golovkin realistically going to stop Alvarez or knock him out? Highly unlikely. If he didn't do it in the first two fights, he's certainly not going to do it in the third fight.
I mean, if we're going to go there, spend a quick second on that. Canelo boxed him the first time and got a draw. He stepped to him the second time and got a decision. Given that backdrop, I don't think Triple G can beat him. As he's getting older, Canelo is in his prime. He knows he can step to the what was deemed the most dangerous middleweight in the world. He could step to him and hit him. Triple G can hit him, and he knows he can take what he can give. The reason I want to see Charlo fight is because Charlo is younger. Charlo is naturally bigger. Charlo, in my opinion, is just as strong, has just as much power, and can box. I want to see how Canelo deals with that proposition. We know what he can do against Triple G. We've seen it twice. I don't think Triple G can do anything to flip the script.
Yeah, and my point being, he's not going to get a retrospective favorable decision on the cards after two fights in which only one judge out of 6 gave him any of the first two fights. So Gennady will know this. So if that fight transpires, that is just Gennady cashing out there and then.
Exactly.
So I don't want to see that fight, period. Maul could try, but I think Maul will just get annihilated.
Let's move on to some other fights. I may split this up. I'm going back to you, Gus. If you saw the design card, what's your analysis, your breakdown of Tevin Farmer? He fought Francisco Fonseca. Fonseca, of course, fought Gervonta Davis last year, August. Was stopped in 8, but that doesn't really tell the story. Davis struggled throughout. And yes, he got the stoppage, but it was more to a shot to the back of the head. He fought this fight against Farmer over the weekend on the undercard of Canelo Fielding. And I keep saying this about Tevin Farmer, Gus. To me, he's an old school fighter. And what I mean by that is he didn't have it his way. He didn't have it easy on the come up. Was stopped by Pedraza. I think he had lost a couple of early bouts, 3, 4 early bouts in his career, but he stuck to it. He stayed on the grind. He stayed working. He stayed studying his craft. He got better and better and better. And now you see him flourishing after winning the world title. He beat Fonseca by decision, clear cut, in my opinion. Again, old school fighter who I am really liking the more and more I see him. And before you give your breakdown, again, I said this when he won the title. I said this after his first defense. I want to give a shout out to Miss Vicious Fox on Twitter. She was on Tevin Farmer before folks even knew who he was, before even hardcore fans knew who he was. She watched him in his 8 fights. She said that he has potential. She saw something special in him. And it's proving to be the case right now. So yeah, your thoughts on Farmer, his win over Fonseca, Gus?
I hope Miss Vicious Fox put down $100 on Tevin Farmer becoming a future world champion when she first spotted him. She'd be extremely wealthy now. Yeah, well, it wasn't a bad fight, Mike. we talked about Fonseca having ability, but we were a little bit unsure given the last 3 fights were in Panama, and I'm not sure whether the fights were on YouTube or whatever, but I certainly didn't see him, so it was curious to see how he would approach this fight. But yeah, he came in there certainly looking for that right hand, maybe a little bit too much during the early stages. So Tevin was able to neutralize a fighter, just looking to sort of load up on power punches, looking to sort of take him out. Gave him an opportunity, to try fighting at different sort of ranges, different styles. He kept the lead foot out, then he put it back in, fighting from a square position, unorthodox position. He was, a little bit of shoulder roll as well. He was trying, various different things. Did a lot of good, tremendous body work, good combination punches, which were working well. Came at a long range fighting with, a little bit of sort of angles and lateral movement. Then he decided to fight inside the pocket. Maybe it wasn't the wisest of strategy because then it allowed, Fonseca to get a little bit into the fight, but I don't think he was too fazed by his power. Fonseca started doing a few, landed 1 or 2 good uppercuts as well. Did a reasonable amount, but it was nothing too extravagant from him. He could have stepped the action a little bit more. But Farmer is very good defensively. That's what you notice. Even inside the pocket, he's able to, parry a lot of the shots, really rotate up his upper body, trying to get almost not even adjacent to try and deflect it off his shoulders. So very, very good defensively, not only at long range with his legs as his first line of defense, but he's able to slip punches as well. Good reflexes, but actually very good on the inside in terms of, using your actual body and your arms and your shoulders and your gloves and etc. to actually, deflect and block punches. So defensively, I was quite impressed. Comfortable victory, 10 rounds to 2, maybe 9-3. Yeah, good victory.
The obvious fight that a lot of folks want to see Farmer in the ring against is the aforementioned Gervonta Davis. Davis has an upcoming fight against Abner Mars early 2019, but there's also other fighters at 130 pounds. You got Machado as well, who, as far as I'm concerned, is the real WBA champion at 130 pounds. You got, oh gosh, I forgot his name, the WBC champion. His name escapes me right now.
Miguel
Berchelt, excuse me. That's right. Thanks for the correction. Even though Davis is out there, of the guys, the main guys at 130 pounds, who would you personally like to see him in the ring against?
Is that for me?
Yes, that's a follow-up question, Gus.
What weight class is that Japanese fighter, Mike? Masayuki?
He's also at 130 pounds as well, and he has a fight at the end of the year on the Big Japan card.
I like him a lot. That's a fight I would like to see them too, but we'll wait for how he gets on in Japan. But so many good fights that can be made. I'm sure. Machado is a Golden Boy fighter, so Golden Boy obviously have a contract now, so with DAZN, so that fight can be made. You'd think it. The difficulties have been simplified, given that they're both on a common network now. So that's a good fight, but it's a dangerous fight. Machado, we know, can hit hard with both hands. So that's going to be a boxer versus a puncher. So good clash of styles. So that would be that's definitely a decent fight. But then you've got 2 southpaws. So sometimes the styles, don't go into the mix. Miguel Berchelt, also, has ties with, Golden Boy from Zanfer, so that fight can also happen. And so many good fights, Mike. Tevin sounds like he's willing to fight, any of the other champions, as he indicated in his post-match. So we desperately, the 130, that was the one disappointment, even when Vasily was there, was that we got no unifications, and we're still waiting as well. It's getting really frustrating now. It's one of those divisions that you really wish that Kelly Sauerland had put into his tournament, so that we can finally get, one decisive, lineal, unified champion, sort of undisputed champion. But it's possible. So any of those fights, Mike. Personally, I'd go with Masayuki first of all. I think but him and Machado, yeah, why not?
Indeed. I forgot about Uki. He's a good fighter as well. Really surprised when he won the title in Florida, in the United States, on enemy turf. And like I said, he has a first title defense in Japan in a couple of weeks. I'm going to you, Gil, talking Katie Taylor. She fought Eva Wahlstrom. Easy decision, unanimous decision in 190 on all three scorecards. Discussed that fight, but more importantly, heading into the new year, Katie Taylor is establishing herself. If Breakus and Shields is not the best fighter in the world, pound for pound, a serious argument can be made for Katie Taylor. She's had it her way in dominant fashion for just about all of her career, minus one fight, in my opinion. She's showing herself to be a dominant champion. In the aftermath of all the talk about Breakus and Clarissa Shields last week on the final HBO show, and the possibility of those two fighting, my thought was, in the aftermath, how come we're not talking about a possible fight between Cecilia Braekhus and Katie Taylor? It makes a lot more sense to me. So again, recap the fight with Wahlstrom and discuss where Katie Taylor goes as we get ready to embark on 2019.
Well, first of all, you're right. Katie had a dominant performance. Once again, Katie has fought 6 times this year. 6 times. Young rising star should do. Get in front of people, stay busy. She's had she had to work, but she was seriously challenged. So absolutely no reason not to exploit every opportunity, and she has. She's got 2 of 4 lightweight belts. Her first goal, her personal first goal, I think that's the right one, is to unify. So she wants one of the 2 tops. She's got her eye on that ball, and that is absolutely what we would want a male fighter to do. So that's what she's going to do. Her opponent is a former super featherweight champion. She had to come up in weight. She's from Finland. I don't think she class competition. To her credit, she gave it everything she could. She was simply too naturally small.
If you don't mind me interrupting, you're going in and out on this, Gail, so you might have to dip out.
Let me do that now. Doing better right now.
Okay, let me. I'll go back to you and talk about the Katie Taylor fight. Gus, Daniel, if you want any commentary on it, please do.
Great showing by Katie Taylor. Like, she starting to show a little bit that she's becoming more than just flashy combinations. It's starting to show a little bit of power, and her and Clarissa are making the case, like the Gail has mentioned, that it should go back to 3-minute rounds for women, because she probably would have gotten a good knockout if she was given an extra minute in one of the rounds. And it was a great showing. Now, the main thing has to be, who's next? Everybody wants her with Amanda. It's the only logical option to make the fight at the moment, because I don't know who try to get the idiotic idea, say she should fight Shields. And like you're either asking Clarissa to drop 25 pounds or Katie Taylor to gain 25 pounds. Like whoever keeps suggesting that is an idiot.
Okay, Gail has left. I'm going right back to you, Daniel, to talk about this upcoming fight. You can chime in as well, Gus. Gilberto Ramirez, Daniel, you had a lot of criticism of him in the past. Had a rematch with Jesse Hart last Friday. Hard fought, close decision, majority decision, I believe it was, in favor of Zerto. First half, second fight. First half, Zerto pretty much had his way. Hart started to come on in the latter half of the fight. We found out during the fight that Zerto had a hurt elbow, didn't throw the left hand because the elbow injury was on his left hand. Excuse me. Really showed some guts, some gumption. The last round really stepped it up, closed the show. Ended up winning the fight as a result of that last round. He hurt Hart. Hart came back at the very end of the round, stunned Ramirez, one of the rounds of the year, round 12 of that fight. Your assessment of not just the fight itself, but has your perception changed of Gilberto Ramirez, given how he fought, given the fact how he had to overcome injury to get the decision win?
No. Straight answer, nope. No, this is Zerto. He fights to the level of his competition, and that's not a knock on Jesse Hart. Jesse Hart is a good super middleweight, but Gilberto let Hart get back into the fight. You can say that the injury got into it, and he had to pull that 12th round that he did in order to win it, to even get the draw. Otherwise, it might have been, the majority decision. Otherwise, it would have been a draw. Either way, he would have kept the title. The problem is, like for Zerto, is I don't think he's really motivated. He keeps trying to say that the other champions at super middleweight didn't want to fight me. Well, whose fault is that? I'm sorry. You could have asked Bob to go and say, you know what, I want to join the World Boxing Super Series next year. I want to test myself against George Gross, against Callum Smith, against Bremer. Which you're not going to now. Because now he decided that he's going to try to say, I'm going to light heavyweight. And because you're going to light heavyweight, okay, I'm going from a division where I could probably outlast the fighters, but I'll give them a tough time, to a division where all 4 champions can knock him out. The only fighter that he could probably go 12 rounds with is Bibble, because Bibble has a tendency, like Zerto in a way, to when he thinks that he's not going to get the quick, emphatic knockout, he settles for the decision. That's what he did with Pascal. That's what he did with Chilemba. And that's even champion. Otherwise, I'm not going to put Zerto against Badu Jack. I'm not putting Zerto against Vostik. I'm not putting Zerto against Alvarez. Hell, at this age, probably the only fighters that you could say you can put him on with is Pascal and Kovalev. And even then, Kovalev may have a chance to knock Zerto out. Like, the kid has the skill set, but the problem is I don't think he has the motivation. Like, he just settles at a certain point. And going to a division where they're legitimate people, we just saw a man literally put another man in the hospital to win a belt. I would say stick to super middleweight, Zerto.
Your reactions to the fight, Gus, if you were able to see it, as well as Zerto's announcement that he's moving up to 175 pounds. Do you agree with Daniel that that is better off for him to stay at 168 and that he would have all kinds of trouble dealing with the light heavyweights?
In terms of the fight, Mike, I didn't see the fight. I didn't even realize it was on a Friday. On a Friday, and you know the time difference makes it difficult to see all of these fights at crazy hours. So
Yeah, understood.
no, I didn't. I haven't even seen the highlights, Mike. I didn't even realize that these two were actually fighting again. So, but in terms of moving up, you know, Ramirez was he was on one of my prospects lists, Mike, back in 2016.
Yes.
But at that stage, I had always prognosticated that he would fight at 175 pounds. He looked just far too big for 168 pounds. I always envisioned he would fight Callum Smith at 175 pounds. That was always a fight that was in the back of my mind, that I see them two fighting for a belt, 3-4 years down the line at 175. So I'm not surprised. But I think the problem he has, Mike, I think he's got very brittle hands. I think he's got the Floyd Mayweather syndrome, and I think that's one of the reasons why he doesn't really punch hard. He's very injury prone as well. I don't know whether he's using some sort of orthopedic gloves as well. I presume he is, but he seems to sustain hand injuries almost every fight, almost like a Deontay Wilder as well. Now up against fighters at 175. When you're weight drained, then that can definitely affect your power. So it's not a foregone conclusion that he's going to be completely ineffective at 175. I think he's going to be better than what he is at 168 in terms of how much weight cutting he's actually doing at the moment, because I feel he is. I was surprised he was at 168 for that long. He has the height. He's a high volume puncher. That's how he's managed to get a lot of his victories, if it isn't for power. But he can box very well if he uses his movement. But I'm not too sure about the injury situation, Mike. Every fighter, I get to hear he's on the sidelines with some sort of an injury. And what is it now you said he has?
Could you repeat the question again?
What injury did he sustain during the fight?
He suffered an elbow injury, left elbow injury.
Okay. What was his volume sort of punch count compared to sort of recent fights? Was it just as much as in the first fight?
Pretty much the same. When he suffered the elbow injury midway through the fight, his output dropped, but he had a sense of urgency, particularly going into that last round, and he really revved it up through the punch, through the left hand, because he knew the fight was close. And by doing that, I was impressed by that. He showed some heart there. He showed some championship qualities. Left himself open a bit, and that's how he got caught with like 15 seconds to go when Hart stunned him. But I like that last round from what I saw of him. I didn't think he had that in him, to be honest with you, and he showed some championship qualities, in my opinion. And what I'll do is, after the show, Gus, I will find the fight, and I will share it with you via your Skype.
Cool.
I'll go to you, Gail. I hope your mic issues are fixed. You can comment on this Ramirez fight, the rematch with Jesse Hart, and continue on with your analysis of one Katie Taylor. Are you there, Gail?
Gail has got some badass technical problems today. Eh?
Yeah, I think she's not there. Her mic is not muted, but I can't hear anything she's saying. What I'll do is, if she comes back, if she's able to come back, I'll give her commentary on Katie Taylor, as well as the Ramirez Jesse Hart fight. What we'll do instead is jump to the news segment, Bit of news here. Anthony Joshua, he was at the Barclays Center. He's been in the U.S. for over a week now, doing interviews and whatnot. He was on First Take last week, other subsequent interviews. Did ringside commentary for the DAZN card. They talked to him in between bouts. And I'll go to you, Gus. We know that Anthony Joshua has a scheduled date, April 13th, 2019. It's been long believed that fight is going to be at Wembley. We don't know who. They asked Joshua about Anthony Joshua. I'm about Deontay Wilder and Joshua. We know he can be a bit of a politician. He basically said he want that fight, that Wilder's camp need to stop messing around and get serious when it comes to negotiation. They kind of doubled down on the question, and Joshua said if it was up to him, he would like to fight Deontay Wilder April 13th. However, Gus, they also asked him about fighting in the United States, and he said that being at ringside watching the event from Barclays kind of piqued his interest at fighting in the United States. And in the subsequent days afterwards, seems to be more than just talk. There's been rumblings about Anthony Joshua, instead of fighting in Wembley on the 13th of April, instead Joshua fighting in the U.S., notably against one Big Baby Miller. Your reaction to the news of Joshua possibly fighting in the U.S. on April 13th. And just to add on to that, if it was a case that Joshua were to fight Big Baby in NYC on the 13th, the word is that instead they would have Kell Brook fight Amir Khan in the UK, in England, on the 13th. So your reaction to all of that news?
I pray it's not the latter. But in terms of, I think it was just a diplomatic answer, Mike. Being present, with Chris and Sugar Ray Leonard, etc. We know Joshua in the past has spoken about that. There is no need for him to fight in the United States. How he wanted a continuation of the momentum that he had established in the United Kingdom. So there's so many variations of what he states depending on sort of what network it is, Mike. I really don't know his movements. I can't see Eddie Hearn relinquishing that lucrative date for him, in the summer in Wembley. In one respect, if he does fight in the United States, if he's worried about possibly some sort of skullduggery in terms of judges, but it's gonna be a match from DAZN promotion, so they're gonna pretty much instigate, the referees and the judges. So I don't think he's got to worry about any sort of possible infractious decisions like what Tyson Fury suffered, because that was a PBC card. But the fight, the fight in the United Kingdom, the thing now, Mike, is that a rematch clause is null and void in the event of a draw. So Wilder is not contractually liable to fight Fury. So he can clearly entertain other options. So that fight can definitely happen. No doubt about it. But Wilder had actually backfired with that decision. So it's Fury who is holding. He's holding the sort of perennial ace cards in terms of negotiation. I think an Anthony Joshua and the Tyson Fury fight next, I think that would be a much bigger fight. I think that fight in the United Kingdom would sell over 1.5 million pay-per-views, Mike. That'd be that'd be a massive fight. Because Fury really made that fight in the United States. I think he was the draw as opposed to Wilder. So Fury is the one who's holding, I think, the main powers in negotiation. So that would be a great fight. But Joshua apparently doesn't value a lineal championship status. He's more worried about he was a little bit naive in some of his comments I don't know whether he was just playing games, but because we know the bitter rivalry that he has with him and Tyson Fury over the years, them two definitely have had a great deal of bitterness. Some people would say that it's Fury a little bit jealous of Joshua, but I don't know. So it's very, very difficult to state, Mike. What'll happen next, or who his next opponent will be. I really don't know, Mike. It's almost becoming to the stage where you're trying to second guess all of this. What the promoters are doing and what the fighters are stipulating. They're saying one thing and then they're contradicting their statements subsequently. So I'm just getting a little bit tired of all of this, Mike.
Your reaction, Daniel, to what you heard from Joshua during that interview ringside over the weekend?
Gus said it political. I say it bluntly. In that sense, Joshua's become a politician when it comes to what his matches are going to be, because he can say what he wants, but we all pretty much know that he's not the one calling the shots in the relationship. We know it's Eddie. So he can say, I think he wants Wilder, that he wants Fury, but we all know, nope, you're going to fight April 13th. You're going to fight in Wembley, and very likely it's going to be against Dillian Whyte. But the problem now that Eddie has, and this is probably why we have to remember, he gave a semi-different answer to Chris Mannix and Jurgen Lerner that he gave to Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman. He gave slightly different answers, but it's still the same vagueness. But they've now realized that when it comes to the heavyweight division in the U.S., they're not the draw. They're not the draw. Like Tyson Fury became a draw. It helped Deontay Wilder probably make himself a draw now for pay-per-view.
And interestingly enough, in addition to that, it wasn't just the way that Fury fought in the ring. It was specifically how he got up from that knockdown and the way he carried himself in the ring interview as well as the press conference. He kind of won a lot of the U.S. public over.
Exactly. That's the winning public over. And guess what? That gave Wilder the one thing you cannot give him if you're trying to pull extreme leverage in negotiations between Joshua. You gave him another option. He now has another option where he can say, you know what? I don't have to fight you, Joshua. People don't think I beat Fury. I'll fight Fury and I'll claim the lineal championship. That's beyond now the scope when it comes to marketability that I think Joshua or Eddie Hearn anticipated that Wilder Fury fight to be. So they're kind of stuck in this where, okay, we know you're going to fight. We know it's going to be in Wembley. We know you're never really going to fight in the U.S. unless it's for a humongous payday. And that's the problem when you're talking about Anthony Joshua and when they talk about Eddie Hearn. It's not up to Joshua, it's up to Eddie.
I'm not sure about that, Daniel, because one thing that I've gauged with Joshua is that he doesn't involve himself too much in when a contest is taking place. So he won't go ringside. He won't involve himself in those discussions. But he sometimes lays cryptic clues in his messages he sends. And he just said he wants undisputed. It was a very short and sort of pertinent message. So I think he's almost indicating that, he wants Wilder's belt now. So I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that it's going to be Dillian Whyte at Wembley. I think Joshua genuinely wants Wilder at Wembley. That's what I'm gauging. Now, Eddie Hearn's valuation of Wilder, if you think about it in retrospect, was absolutely correct. You know, the offers that he offered, 12 million and 15 million. Well, what has Wilder earned subsequently in this fight? I'm hearing, once all the reconciliation is done, it's around $10.96 million, something along those lines. So the valuation that Eddie Hearn had generated was perfectly fine. So for all those to criticize Eddie Hearn and Wilder himself, saying that that is some sort of a slave mentality and that is a derisory offer, no, it isn't. Back then Wilder had not even accrued his highest payday, which was $2.1 million for Luis Ortiz. So when a promoter has offered you 8 times your highest payday, and it's more than what you've subsequently made in the pay-per-view fight, then no, it's a very astute valuation. So the negotiations after have been what? They're claiming a 50 million offer, which I've already debunked as being rubbish, because that couldn't have happened.
So wait, so you're saying that Barry Hearn lied?
Well, no. You think about it. Look, about what? Sorry.
Barry Hearn pretty much admitted that the $50 million offer was true.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that you think about it. Now, if somebody offers you financial terms without a guarantor being revealed, yeah, that's perfectly fine. But what would have happened if Joshua would have taken the fight, Daniel? What would have happened? There would have been a legal imposition. His funds would have been seized, and he would have been paid damages because he was under contract with Sky Box Office. He has a direct contract with them, which means he cannot fight on any third-party UK broadcasting network. Shelley Finkel knows that. Al Heyman knows that. So effectively, those terms are absolutely ludicrous. A fight ain't gonna happen. That is the only reason why they weren't unable to produce a contract. That was the only reason why they didn't reveal the guarantor. That was when Steve Atkinson was querying BT executives, they vehemently denied that they were the ones behind the offer. So the Wilder camp, it's all a smear campaign designed, so Joshua would somehow capitulate to the demands and give Wilder what he wants, because his advisors are looking to cash him out. They know he's very injury prone. They know his right hand is on the verge of going. Just go back and look at all of his fights. He's not using his right hand. Look at his training camps. He's not using his right hand. He claims he had a broken hand in this fight. And look at the weight issue. He's gone down from 230 to 206 pounds when he started VADA testing. So, these guys have never really been serious about the fight. It's just absolutely ludicrous. Now they have the opportunity. They were the ones who were actually given a legitimate contract to fight. So, the whole thing has been distorted quite badly. But if you look at the facts of the situation, they've had opportunities, to fight. They've had a contract, but they've chose not to honor it and pursue other means. So fine. Wilder had his experiment was to try and increase his fan base, to try and become a pay-per-view star. He may have done that to some degree, but ultimately it was Tyson Fury who actually made the fight. He was the one he had the majority of the fans. Look at the demographics of the crowd as well. He had all of the support at all of the press conferences. He was the one who actually made the fight. And I think he turned out to be, he definitely had the moral victory as well. So I think that Wilder experiment backfired. He might have had a little bit of an injection in his profile, but he certainly didn't get that lineal championship either. So, and if 60% of all of the boxing fraternity felt that, Tyson Fury had won the fight, then clearly it's backfired. He should have really gone in there and knocked out a fighter at the most at his most vulnerable time, coming off the shelves 2.5 years, losing 150 pounds, they thought it was just a regulation victory. So I think it's backfired badly for the Wilder fans.
Do you think, Gus, that it was a mistake for Joshua not to be at ringside for Wilder Fury, A, and B, let's just say that Wilder and Fury fight again? Do you think, based on what you're saying, feeling that kind of Wilder missed the opportunity there and should have knocked him out, do you think he's going to face even more problems in a possible rematch?
I think in the rematch, Tyson Fury I think he still had 15 pounds of, fat. You could see it around his handles, etc., his back. In the rematch, I think he's going to be even better, Mike. Why? Because I think he'll realize that he had opportunities to really sit down on his punches, because there were various moments in which I felt he had hurt Wilder, but he simply didn't. Emmanuel Stewart said it a number of years ago that why he liked Tyson Fury is because he's very defensively conscious. That's what he thinks of. So he won't engage too much at that distance. He'll always think about defense. So I think Fury in a rematch, Mike, will try and sit down on his punches, and I think he can definitely get a stoppage victory. And he can certainly correct those deficiencies he had, in the fight in terms of standing in front of Wilder, maybe ducking a little bit too much, hence being on the hand of, Wilder's money shots, twice. He would have felt his power as well. I think he can only get better, Mike, whereas Wilder, as I've indicated, Mike, I felt Wilder reached his ceiling 7 years ago, Mike. And that was me making the assessment of watching him at Beijing, watching him in his early career. You guys have always criticized me a little bit for criticizing Wilder, but correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but I've been consistently criticizing Wilder since the first day I've come on this podcast. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's true. You're not wrong about that.
Yeah. That's the best part about it. You've been consistent with it. It hasn't been jumping in from one area or the other.
Yeah,
you've been consistent in criticism, and it's valid criticism. Like Mike, I remember when on Bo's show, we pretty much said that at a certain point, I think we believe that Wilder needs a new team. At a certain point, we think Mark Brilliant has taken him as far as he could take him. So that's ultimately going to shape up to be. The problem is, to me, is the whole. It's not money. It's not the money to me. The money doesn't matter to me when it comes to with Wilder and Joshua. I'm not one of those people that says they should get 50-50. We understand who has the more leverage here. The problem to me is that Eddie doesn't want to even bother really fully give it a chance, or just try to make an honest offer, because if that was the case, you wouldn't have to hear as early as 2 months ago that it was going to be Joshua versus Whyte, or Joshua versus Big Baby Miller at Wembley on April 13th. We've been hearing about this for 2 or 3 months already. That's the problem.
Give a shout out to. Let me give a shout out, Gus. To Tommy Gunn, who joined us in the YouTube chat. He says hello. He's commenting in the chat. He says he believes that Wilder Fury 2 has to happen. That was the best fight in the USA in years. He feels that Tyson Fury won the fight 100%. He says massive mistake for AJ not to scout his best competition. It's way different than just watching the film. He also says that Wilder got exposed. Mark Brilliant walked out of the damn corner. Continue on, Gus.
Just too quick. What I was going to say, if Wilder hasn't developed his game under an Olympic gold medalist trainer in Mark Brilliant, then I'm not sure what his capacity to learn is going to be under a different coach at sort of Q4 in his career now. So I'm not sure whether a new coach is going to work, but I could be wrong. Secondly, I think at the end that when Joshua was in the States, when Chris Mannix was giving him some good questions, Joshua, correct me if I'm wrong, but did he say something about that? Maybe Wilder does deserve a little bit of the upside on the pay-per-view now.
He said he was going to give Joshua kind of the standard flat fee, but understanding that Wilder does deserve more, he's going to start with the basic fee, and then he's going to offer him more, just to, I guess, not give, in his opinion, in his mind, not to give Wilder any excuses in terms of money. So from his perspective, he gave off the impression, if Wilder wants more, we're going to give him more. We're going to put more on the table. Let's see what he does then.
So the basic would be $15 million, yeah?
He didn't say specific. They posed that. He didn't say specifically 15 million, but his rationale is, okay, we'll give him that. We'll give him his standard fee, and if he wants more, we'll give him more. Now that flat fee could be 15 million. I'm not sure, but he basically said, to your point, Gus, yeah, we're going to offer him more.
If you do, Mike, if you just do like a quick sort of, if you do like, the mathematics now, 90,000 at Wembley, they can realistically get a gate of around, just say 15 million, yeah? 15 million pounds. All right. So 15 million, and then pay-per-views, Wilder and Joshua, that I think that would definitely do more than $1 million. So let's say 23 million, yeah? So we're looking at a gate and pay-per-views domestically about 38 million, let's say 38 million. And then that fight, I'm not sure whether it's going to be pay-per-view in the United States given the time difference, or whether it's going to be some sort of a 6 o'clock repeat on Showtime. But they're going to have a number of licensing, etc. The different sort of networks. Bein Sports will probably pick it up, as well as a lot of the Sky broadcasters around the world. So the fight, the fight could definitely generate around 70, 80 million, no problem. So the question is, Joshua's looking at his recent earnings, Mike. He's been getting around 32, according to Forbes, around $39 million with endorsements, but without endorsements, 32 million, and that was his last fight. So he's going to take obviously a lion's share of the split. So you're looking. So Wilder will probably he could take home around $20 million, Mike. The question is whether that's going to be sufficient for Wilder, or does he, because he's indicated in the past that he wants a 50-50 split. He said it should be 60-40 in his favor, but he's willing to go 50-50. So you tell me what is reasonable, what isn't.
Yeah, good point. Good point. We're going to end the discussion there because we can go on all night about that. Let's move on to previewing some fights here. Going to you, Daniel. The Charlo brothers fighting this weekend. Maul, who we mentioned as a possible opponent for Canelo Alvarez. At least I mentioned who I want to see him, Canelo Alvarez, fight next. He was substitute opponent fighting Korabov, however you pronounce his last name, my apologies. He was supposed to fight Willie Monroe Jr. Monroe Jr. tested positive for a testosterone booster. Korabov, who was going to fight on that card, is filled in as a substitute. So Maul is continuing to fight at southpaw. In my opinion, Korabov is a better opponent than Willie Monroe Jr. Your reaction, first of all, to the positive test from Willie Monroe Jr. and the fight itself with Korabov.
The test. This is gonna be one of those things that supposedly, according to Monroe's team, the test that they're saying that they found was from 6 weeks ago. And they're just announcing it within the week of the fight. That should have been announced much earlier. Granted, we got a better fight out of it because Matt Korabov is technically a better fighter for Jermall than Willie Monroe at this stage. But that's a little bit messy. As far as Korabov, he's a serviceable opponent. Like I mentioned, has campaigned more recently in super middleweight. And he, like I say, was a former mandatory challenger, so he's at least in the fringes of being the top contender in the middleweight division. And like I said, it'll give Maul a good test as far as skill and amateur, but it could wind up being also similar to the J-Rock fight. If we remember the J-Rock fight when Jermall fought J-Rock, before that knockout, J-Rock, you can argue, won at least 2 rounds of that fight based on skill alone. But the thing is, Jermall can rely on his power to bounce back from anything. And he's a skilled fighter in himself, so it should be a good fight. I really wasn't looking forward to the Willie Monroe fight. Granted, marketing-wise, it's not going to affect anything. As a typical PBC card, I have not seen very, very little promotion of it here. But it should be an entertaining fight. And at least it keeps the billing for both Charlos on it. Because there was a slight chance that then Abden would have fallen on Jermell.
And it keeps the card alive, which was really vital given the fact that this fight is the beginning of a new partnership between PBC and Fox. Upwards of $60+ million on the table. Gus, this deal venture not just Fox, but Fox Sports, Fox Deportes, eventually broadening into PBC pay-per-view. So it was vital that this card stay afloat, stay alive. Your reaction to the substitute for Charlo, as well as the fight and the subsequent fight with Korabov.
It's kind of a bitter irony, isn't it, Mike, with Willie Monroe, given the accusations by Willie and Victor Conte when they contested against Billy Joe Saunders, how outspoken they were about Billy Joe's conditioning under a different trainer over in Sheffield. So very ironic that Monroe, who's back with Victor Conte, at his training facilities, utilizing his supplements, would sort of breach regulations. So, but I'm going to do a detailed video on that, Mike, because that's the interest I have in having a look, the testing and the regulations, and who conducted the testing this time? Was it USADA or VADA?
VADA.
It was VADA. Okay.
Yeah.
You know how I feel about VADA, Mike. I think VADA is a unit that really shouldn't be in boxing. They operate under no guidelines. They've got their own lists. They've got their own. They're not a recognized partner of the World Action. They're not an accredited partner or an affiliate. The World Anti-Doping Association doesn't even look at them with any sort of esteem. So I've got no time for a voluntary drug testing organization that is funded and conducts testing at the behest of unregulated sanctioning organizations. It's just a clusterfuck. So, forget about that. But Matt Korabov, a brilliant amateur, Mike. I saw a lot of him back in the amateurs. Not really made the transition that well professionally. The question is going to be how well does he hold a punch, Mike, against Maul? He was doing well against Andy Lee. I know he got stopped on his feet. I I'm not sure how well he's done in recent fights, but he does have one good victory against, Jose Usca, the guy, the super, the 168-pound champion. I think that was a points win. I think he might have even been floored in that fight, but I think it was a 10-round fight. So very good fighter, Mike. He does have the ability, but I haven't seen him he's going to hold a punch, Mike. So difficult really to make a prediction, but it could be a barn burner of a type of fight. We know Maul is extremely aggressive. He's looking to take out opponents. He doesn't really mess around there. Look at the way he disposed of Santana. That was quite very impressive. The way he punches and took him out, that was vicious. So could be an early stoppage. He jumps on him, or Korabov chooses to box a bit, and he's got all the he's got tools. It could be one of those ones where he has to work a little bit hard, and maybe get a comfortable points victory, or he takes him out late. So you would have to tip your hat towards Molmuk, but very difficult. I don't know whether you can shed any light. Well, what has Korabov been doing recently? I've got no idea. Haven't seen.
I have no clue. Do you have any clue, Daniel?
Like I said, it's been fighting between middleweight and super middleweight. He left Top Rank. He's obviously, he's been fighting for the PBC for the past year and a half now.
Okay.
So he's been on a lot of the undercard. This is the first time he's going to be in the main card, PBC wise. But he's been, he's been a serviceable middleweight or super middleweight for their purposes. So it's an interesting fight. Yeah, it's a better fight than we would have gotten Willie Monroe. I just don't like the fact that if the test was done 6 weeks ago, why is Mauricio Suleiman waiting until fight week to announce this?
Yeah, that's true, because the announcement was Friday. Was told it was going to be in the tweet from Suleiman Friday. He said he was going to announce it. There was going to be an announcement actually today, but through Ring TV yesterday, they said that officially Korabov is going to step in as the substitute opponent. So you really didn't see anything from Suleiman today. So to your point, you have a point there, Daniel. I want to move on to the undercard bout. Mel Charlo, current champion at super welterweight, fighting Tony Harrison. I'm going back to you, Daniel. For me, Harrison is a guy who does well early, fades, and eventually gets stopped. That's the case with him whenever he is faced top-notch opposition. I think that's going to be the case again. He's going to have his moments. He's going to have his moments where he may even outbox Mel Charlo. But I don't trust his conditioning. I don't trust his chin. I do trust Mel's conditioning. I trust his chin, and I think he has good pop. He's going to find Harrison with good pop eventually, and I think he's going to stop Harrison latter quarter of the fight. Just a customary Tony Harrison bout whenever he faces real competition. He finds a way to lose.
Oh, God, that is the Tony Harrison story. He is literally a fighter that can win 9 rounds in a 10-round fight and get knocked out in the 10th round. That is the Tony Harrison story. And it'll come sooner to me in my eyes, but it's pretty much the same way. We have to mention Jermell has done great improvement under Derek James. That change in trainer from Ron Shields has done wonders for him. He's not only gone better as a skill fighter, he's rediscovered his punch in many ways. So this is a showcase for both brothers, and it's gonna be a showcase in either way because when you look at the divisions that they're in, obviously with Jermall, we know the top dog is Canelo as far as the public eye and marketing is concerned. When it comes to Jermell, we know that right now you can consider her number one just because he has 2 belts. And then we also know that there's Jaime Munguia waiting in the wings out there with the WBO strap. So we understand Jermall maybe looked at a little bit too much, overlooked a little bit sometimes in the picture of it when it comes to marketing, but it's a showcase for them. This is going to be an interesting fight. Like we mentioned, Tony Harrison can look really good early on, but as the fight wears on, he just does things that make you shake your head at how he loses the fight. And that's ultimately what's going to happen to it. Like I said, it's going to be a good showcase for both brothers. And hopefully it's the start of actually a fruitful relationship with PBC and Fox.
Quick word on this fight, Gus, from you.
I'm getting a little bit pissed off, Mike, with this round robin of fighting former victims between Hurt and Mel. No need, no need. We all know the fight we want is them two in a unification. For Hurt now to go to somebody else, J-Rock, this is getting ridiculous, Mike. No, I think it's completely unnecessary. He's had one fight, Jason Welborn fight. Tony Harrison just reminds me of a Ben Johnson pre-sold 1988, Mike, where he was a 60-meter runner, very good.
Start fast and fades late.
Yeah, that's why he started bulking up with the Nandrolone. Yeah,
yes.
that Tony Harrison, a beautiful fighter. A fantastic boxer. I love that sort of Detroit Kronk style he has. Aesthetically, his movement around, he punching, but unfortunately something goes wrong over the second half when he's getting chased down with fighters. Could be, I don't know whether it is his gas tank. It definitely looks like it, because he seems to lose his form, and you can look at his stance as well, and that goes. And when that generally goes, it's always down to fatigue. So could be one of those, Mike, where he looks good for a few rounds before more stamps on him. Capitalizes when he's starting to deplete, not throwing as much punches. His lead hand is so low, and probably takes him out late or after the 6th round or something.
You basically summed up my thoughts of the fight. I think it's going to happen exactly that way. I think Harrison's going to find some success early, and then once Mel gets used to him, catches up with him, and Harrison slows down, it's going to be good night, Irene. Going back to you guys. Go ahead.
Could be very similar to that Julian Jackson and Mel fight, you know what I mean? A little while ago.
Yes. When I believe Mel won the title. Going back to you, talk about this next fight. Significant heavyweight bout over in England. Dillian Whyte and Derek Chisora fighting a rematch. They fought last year. Highly competitive fights. One of the better heavyweight fights of 2017. Whyte won by decision. From what I'm hearing, Chisora is in terrific shape. He seems totally committed and focused. Whyte won, but I know folks who felt that Chisora deserved the decision. Are we going to have a similar kind of back and forth war here in the rematch, Gus?
If Dillian Whyte chooses to sort of engage with Chisora like that, then it would definitely be a war. He's a better boxer, and he's a very, Dillian Whyte is an improving boxer as well. We talked about it before. He's got a good promoter behind him. He's based in Loughborough. Does a lot of his training conditioning over at Loughborough University, so he doesn't have that problem where he's with Jonathan Banks and he's flying over to Austria and whenever he can get sparring, when Banks wasn't with the Klitschko's. So it was very fragmented, a bit of sort of chaotic. So he didn't have that continuity, but he's got the Tibbs brothers, training him as well. So he has that stability. He's earning good money now. No need for this fight to be on pay-per-view. If the first fight is on domestic, on regular Sky, then this is a bit of a piss take now. But I think it will be a decent fight, Mike. Chisora, you just never know with him. He turns up in Monaco completely disinterested, gets outboxed by a guy you've never heard of, goes into the Takam fight, you know, gets a massive pop. The crowd are loving him. He seems to be energized by the crowd, you know. He's getting beaten up, but he just comes out with some haymaker punches to take him out, you know, almost a resurrection in his career. He's moved now to David Haye as his promoter. He's been back in the gym with Don Charles, apparently training very hard. Yeah, looks to be in good shape. He wants to come down and have a war again. He'll have the crowd behind him as well. So I think he will definitely be energized. So he's going to be coming out hunting Dillian Whyte. But I think Whyte is one of those guys, Mike, that, you know, the old school Brixton mentality, you know, he's not going to stand around for too long. He's going to try and engage. I think it's going to be a war again after a couple of rounds of sort of couple of feelers, you know, distance management rounds. I think it's going to pretty much break out into a war again. But I think Dillian Whyte will take it this time, Mike. Younger fighter, he doesn't have really the mark as well. He's a better tech boxer. He can take a punch as well. I think his conditioning, it'll have to be better than what it was in the Joseph Parker fight, because he capitulated right at he came in too heavy. So it's going to be a good question, Michael, on his weight. If he's at that sort of weight in the high 258s, you know, maybe 260s, then I'll be a little bit worried if it goes a little bit later. But if he's coming lighter than 250, maybe even the late 240s, then I know he's in better fate for endurance, because, you know, Derek Chisora also has a good chin as well, and he can go as well. So if he's at a good training camp, you know, Dillian Whyte's going to have to come in a little bit lighter and anticipate an aggressive Chisora who's able to, you know, keep up that work rate. So prediction, I'll probably go with Dillian Whyte. I don't think he'll stop him. I think he'll get a comfortable point win.
I'm going with Dillian Whyte by decision. On this, I just think he's the younger fighter, the fresher fighter, and I think he'll come in better shape, and he will not be fighting on pure emotion and anger like he did the first time out. Box Zone in the YouTube chat says he got some money on Harrison to win by decision. Good luck with that bet, bruh. I don't see it. If Harrison wins, I'll take the L on that. But again, I just don't see it. I think he'll fade. Going to you, Daniel, your thoughts on Whyte Chisora rematch?
First things first, would there be tables be thrown? That's all I care about. Would there tables be thrown at this fight? And second, as one of the people that believes that Del Boy won the first fight, is he going to come in more determined to not let it go to the judges this time? Because that's pretty much right now the only chance he has. Because since that fight, luckily, Dillian has done some improving in the subsequent fights. And like we mentioned, he's the younger fighter. We obviously, like we speculated before for a good amount of time. Like I said, he looks to have an opportunity waiting in the wings. So it's more incentive on him to take the fight. And I really, really, really hope that we get a barn burner at this fight, because I'll admit, like, as sloppy as it was in many ways, it was an entertaining fight the first time. Hopefully, like I said, we're going to get the same thing the first time around, but all I want is for either man to just throw the table once again right over Eddie Hearn's head and just watch Eddie Hearn's life flash before his eyes once again.
Going to discuss this final fight, starting with you, Gus. You can, of course, join in as well, Daniel. Josh Warrington, IBF featherweight champion. His win over Lee Selby is one of my more impressive performances of the year, because he bullied Selby. He had him cut. He was beating him up, overwhelmed him, swarmed him, and by the midpoint of that fight, the intensity in which he fought with was so high that he had Selby intimidated. Let me take that back. He had Selby intimidated from jump in that fight. Coming into his first defense against former 122-pound champion Carl Frampton, the question is, can Warrington bring that same intensity against the likes of Frampton? If he does, at this stage of his career, can Frampton deal with what Warrington brings from that intangible perspective?
Difficult question, Mike. When you talk about mindset, now, Josh Warrington, when he was with Matchroom Boxing, he was talking about Lee for before when the fight took place. That was a fight he was obsessed with. So he had more than sufficient time to really analyze that opponent, and he did it very well with his father. And how he actually won that fight, what folks don't really point out is his underrated foot speed. The way he would explode, come into range, and he couldn't miss with that left hook. And he looked at Lee's style and thought that, that was his biggest deficiency, extremely open to the left hook. And it was a perfectly calibrated game plan. And he was in front of his adoring, Leeds United fans over at Ellen Road, which had always been his dream. So in that sense, Mike, it's like a little bit like when Tony Bellew fought Ilunga Makabu at sort of Goodison Park, and how he talked about nothing would even surpass that fight, even the Usyk fight, much bigger fight. So but now we're in the situation where Carl Frampton has been the one who's been anticipating this fight and trying to make the fight, where Josh was a little bit reluctant at first. And it's a bit of a resurgent Carl Frampton now, who we're seeing once again operating much more as a boxer, as a counterpuncher, under a different tutor in Jamie Moore. And he's been looking very good. He had a very shaky start with that Mexican who came over with Saul Alvarez, I can't remember his name, who gave him a hell of a fight. The first fight under Jamie Moore, but progressively he's been getting better. He looked much better against Nenito Doner, and in his last fight, I think can't remember the guy's name, but I think it was quite a vicious beating he had inflicted upon his opponent. His face was, badly busted up. So it was this fight is going to be, Bull and the Matador, the two classic styles, Mike. I think Josh is going to have to be aggressive. He is a brawler. But if you look at one common opponent, and that's Kiko Martinez, Mike, Frampton fought him twice, beat him comfortably, stopped him the first time. Second time they fought, it was for the IBF belt back in Northern Ireland. Frampton, won everything. Martinez was not even competitive. Whereas Josh Warrington fought Kiko Martinez, I think, 3 or 4 fights ago, and he struggled, Mike. I felt Martinez had actually won that fight. But it could be a case of styles makes fights. But I think Frampton will be much happier with an opponent coming to him, because then he's going to be able to use his pivots and he's going to be able to counter him, rather than going to an opponent in which he was exposed a little bit with Santa Cruz. So I think the style will actually favor him. Josh might be slightly the bigger guy in terms of height, but Frampton is short and stocky, so I think he does have, the physical strength. So I'm definitely leaning towards the counter puncher, Mike. I think Frampton on point, and I think Frampton may even drop him, Mike, in the fight.
Interesting, because a lot of people coming into this fight, at least from what I've been listening to, has Frampton as the underdog. Your thoughts on this fight, Daniel?
Wait, what? Did I hear that right? Frampton as the underdog?
I've been hearing folks feeling that Warrington is going to win this fight.
They must have not watched Okay. One thing that you have to take into account when it comes to fights, because they do like a lot of brawlers, and they may be judging it by the fact that it hasn't been that many fights since Frampton has been with his new team, but he's done a much better job of being more of a boxer, like Gus said, under this new team. And it's allowed his counterpunching skills to really start to flourish. And that fight with Josh Warrington, that's pretty much gift wrap for him to showcase those skills, because Warrington's gonna bring it. That's the way he is. Like that's how he took the title from Lee Selby. He just kept coming. So that's gonna be a fun fight to do. And it'll show versatility probably in Frampton's area, because the fights we know he's angling a rematch with Santa Cruz. We know he's gonna most likely try to get a fight with Oscar Valdez at some point. So it's a very, very pivotal fight for him, and it's a good opponent to showcase his skills at. But I'll give Warrington a chance because, yes, Frampton has gotten better as a boxer and gotten more into counterpunching, but all the best, all the best laid out plans in the world can stop the minute you get hit, as the famous saying goes. And if Warrington really steps on the gas from the beginning and starts trying to really lambast Frampton with combinations, Frampton may be dragged back into just trying to out-brawl the brawler, which can happen a lot of times. When still winning a new team and you're trying to improve, there's always a fight that can always drag you to what you were doing before. And this may be that fight for Frampton. Although I think he's probably learned a little bit more discipline, and he knows that he has some fights lined up for him in the future. So I would say Frampton, but it's not going to be an easy fight. I could probably say split decision.
For me, the key is the jab. If Frampton can get going with the jab, he wins, and wins rather comfortably, because Frampton hasn't been on the scene that much. People in the U.S. have not seen him probably since the second fight with Santa Cruz, and because of that, you kind of forgot what he can do. I think the left jab of Carl Frampton is one of the better jabs in the sport. If he gets that going, and if he can overcome the activity that Warrington fights with, particularly early in the bout, I think he wins. No, I know he will win. And if he can stay calm and composed in the pocket behind that jab, he can win and win comfortably. If somehow Warrington can get Frampton to fights at a faster pace, get him outside his comfort zone, if you will, Frampton will find some difficulty in there, particularly later on in the bout, where his activity sometimes seems to slow down. It did in the Santa Cruz bouts. It did against Quigg late in that bout. But for me, it's the jab, and I think that Frampton, his experience, he's been there, done that, while Warrington, in spite of what we saw and how impressed we were with the Selby fight, keep in mind that was still his first title opportunity. He is in a bigger fight now. The moment may get to him. So for me, I'm going with Frampton. Carl Frampton winning by decision. 8-4-7-5. It's going to be a tough fight. It's going to be a close fight, competitive fight. But I'm going with Carl Frampton here by decision. I think we're going to start to shut down the show. On that note, unfortunately, Gail could not come back with us, having Wi-Fi issues in her area. If you want to talk boxing, if you want to talk Game of Thrones, small business advice, Dancing with the Stars, you can follow her on Twitter. Well, you can check her out first of all on Communities Digital News. That's COMM Digi DIGI News, Com Digi News. You can also check her out on Twitter, PR Pro San Diego. That's PR Pro San Diego. I go to you guys from Corruption and Boxing. For folks who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk music, especially, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
Yeah, Corruption in Boxing on YouTube. I'm going to be planning on doing some videos next week. I'm going to try and look into this Willie Monroe drug saga, as well as give some previews and predictions for the upcoming fights over in Japan as well on New Year's Eve. Yeah, thanks, Mike.
Going to you, Daniel. For those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk the NBA specifically when it comes to Miami Heat, let the folks know where they can find you.
Yes, folks, you can find me on Twitter, Ruckus99. Tomorrow night, we're going to do the podcast with me and Joe Francis for boxing news, obviously looking back at these fights, going over a really good effect, and want to send a congratulations already early, because the Boxing Writers Association is already coming out with some awards, and Clarissa Shields wins Female Fighter of the Year.
Yes. Has there been any other awards announced? I just heard that awards, that particular specific awards. Has there been any other awards announced?
No, I think that they're going to start coming in the next few days.
Okay, cool. Want to thank. Let me look it up right quick. Want to thank Tommy Gunn. Want to thank Box Zone for listening to us live on YouTube. If you like what you've heard, please click that like button. Please click that subscribe button on YouTube, as well as subscribe to us on SoundCloud and iTunes. And please make sure to leave a review on iTunes. Good review. I will read it during the show. If you want to talk the sweet science, if you want to talk fitness, if you want to talk music with me, you know what it is on Twitter, Brother JR at Brother JR76. As I said to begin the show, if you want to find out all things regarding Pound for Pound Boxing Report, the blog page is the best place to go to, P4P Boxing Report. .wordpress.com. You check the right of the blog page, you'll find links to where to find us all over social media, where to find us on all available platforms that carry podcasts, mine is Spotify, as well as click that donate button that you see on the right portion of the blog page as well. Again, donation is the best nation. I don't care how much you give, $1, how much you have, you can afford to give, $1, $2, $5, $10, $15, I don't care what it is. There are very few things are free, including the production of this podcast. On the next episode, we will do a recap of Frampton and Warrington, a recap of the Dillian Whyte Derek Chisora rematch, the recap of the Charlo's brothers fighting, Jermell fighting Tony Harrison, Jermall fighting Korabov. And next week, I'm going to try to make next week our last show of the year, year-end recap, where we do fighter of the year, fight of the year, prospect of the year, what we like to see in 2019, as well as doing a preview of the Big Japan card that's going to happen. And Gus, for those who do not know, the Big Japan card will be on ESPN Plus, so folks in the States can watch it via that streaming service, ESPN Plus. Masayuki Ito, who we talked about earlier during the show, he's going to defend his belt against Chupakov, his first title defense. Kenshiro, a fighter Gus and I have talked about on this show, think highly of. He's going to be defending his bout against Alvarez. The Tamoya Inoue, the younger brother of Naoya Inoue, he's going to be fighting for the interim bantamweight title against a Thai fighter by the name of Chipatana. And on the 31st, Gus, we got to talk about this fight. We got to talk about it. Donna Nietes, Kazota Ioka. I know you really pumped up about that fight. I wouldn't be surprised if you do a preview on your own channel about that. One of the best fights, great way to end the year. That fight is happening in Macau on the 31st. Heki Butler is going to defend his title as his junior flyweight title against a Japanese fighter by the name of Koyuchi Koyaguchi. Low key, very good fight.
Good fight.
Light fly. Don't be surprised. I would not be shocked. I would not be surprised if Koyaguchi beats Butler. I'm just putting it out there. And also, Morate Muthalani, he's defending his flyweight belt. That's all happening on that Macau card. So, looking to have the year-end show. I'll recap of boxing in 2018 as well as previewing boxing at the end of the year. So, for Gail, for Communities Digital News, Gus from Corruption and Boxing, Daniel from The Inscriber, I'm your host, Michael. This has been episode 233 of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. Everybody have a good evening. Good night.
Night, man.